Purpose is a powerful force, and it has changed my life. Purpose is a journey, and every one of us has our own starting point as it relates to our own journey to finding our purpose in our work and in our lives. And for me, my journey started on this day, in this moment. It was the first time that I laid eyes on my son, Miles. By a show of hands, how many of you are parents or have young people in your lives? Yeah. So you know that there's something that changes you when you see your child for the first time. As I'm looking at Miles and I'm holding him and I'm looking at his eyes and I'm looking at this curly hair and he's looking at me and I'm imagining all the conversations that we're going to have throughout his life. I'm also thinking about the world that he's going to grow up in, the type of world that I want him to be a part of, and the type of life that I want him to have the opportunity to live. I started to imagine the fact that soon after this picture was taken, I was going to have to start going back to work, and I was going to be traveling and going to different places and different countries. And there was going to be a time when he was going to be old enough to ask me, "Daddy, where are you going? And why is that so important?" And I remember thinking about that question and playing that scenario out in my mind and realizing that I wanted to make sure I had a good answer. And at that time, I wasn't sure that I did. I was doing great work. I was doing fun work. I was working at an agency. I was working with a lot of amazing clients. We were making money. We were winning awards. We were doing all of these fantastic things. But at that moment, those things didn't matter. What I wanted most was to do work that I felt made a difference in the world, and that was contributing to the type of world that I wanted him to grow up into. So I started to go on this journey, but I realized I was at this crossroads. So I had a choice. I could either continue down the path that I was doing, which was fun and cool and all those things, but didn't have a sense of purpose, didn't have meaning. Or I could find a new path, one that allowed me to do work that was cool and interesting, but it also had a sense of purpose. And that allowed me to do work that was making a positive impact in the world in ways that brought me alive. And so I started to go on this journey to figure out, what is my purpose going to be? What is the work that I want to do? And how do I get about doing that work? And so I spent time trying to figure out what it is that I wanted to do. What was it that I uniquely was here to do in the world? And I struggled, but I started to get clearer and clearer and clearer. And there was this moment where I started to write out what I wanted my purpose to be and the work that I wanted to do. And it was at that moment that I remembered a story that a good friend of mine, Eric Dawson, had told me. It's a story of two wolves. And the story goes that there's a grandfather and he's talking to his grandson, and the grandfather looks at his grandson and he says, "I have these two wolves inside of me." He said, "I have one wolf that is angry and violent and hateful, selfish." He said, "But I have this other wolf inside of me that is loving and that is kind and that is generous." And the grandson looked at his grandfather, and he's a little confused. He said, "Well, you have these two wolves inside of you. Which wolf wins?" And the grandfather, he looked at his grandson. He said, "The wolf that wins is the one that I choose to feed." And it was in that moment that I realized the work that I'm here to do and the work that I want to dedicate my life to doing, and that was to feed the good wolf. To feed the good in this world. And at a time when there's so much divisiveness and violence and so many things that are tearing us apart, I wanted to be the one that did work that was bringing people together and igniting hope and spreading love and showing people the power that they had to live lives that not only make a positive impact in the world, but also brings them alive in ways that people are so hungry for.